going live. Are you okay?
Yeah, sure.
And we're live now. All right, so welcome everybody. I'm Melissa Wu. I work at a nonprofit called Stadium Labs, and co-hosting this event with Adrian and Rainey. To start off, I think it'd be nice if everyone could go around and talk about who you are and what brings you to the discussion today.
Sure. I am Max Mendelson. I'm from Los Angeles, California, currently in school at Babson here around Boston. And I came to the school, which sort of centers itself around entrepreneurship and various types of business, knowing that I wanted to do some sort of social impact work, and came in with a pretty open mind, but knowing that that was my focus. And so over the course of this past year, I've definitely got a lot of insight as to what that world really looks like, and also solidified that that is what I want to do. So I have some things I'm working on, trying to get internships for the summer in that field, but just trying to learn as much as possible right now as a youngin.
I'm David Qualter. I'm the Vice President for Operations at Seeding Labs and work with Thomas. So just hear what everyone has to say today.
My name is Adrian. I'm with an organization called Water for Good, and we drill and maintain water wells in the Central African Republic. And we have an aspect of our work that focuses on maintaining the wells that exist around the country, not just the ones we drill. So that kind of builds in a social enterprise aspect to our work, even though we are a nonprofit. And I think it's exciting to take a minute on Earth Day to just think about how do we make our work sustainable, especially for involved in developing countries and transferring technology and practices back and forth between two different contexts.
I work at Impact Hub Boston, actually for Impact Hub Boston, not just in space. And I go to organizing, and live on it for a short while, living in South Sudan.
Hi, my name is Thea Nielsen, and I'm a project coordinator for a university based in Germany, working for Boston, and we're doing work with energy efficient cook stoves in Malawi, Mozambique. So I was very interested in this activity today. I wanted to learn about more work that's been going on in the Boston area.
Hi, I'm Rainey. I work for an organization called Empower Design, and we have energy education programs in Uganda. And we primarily work with renewable energy technology, and we work with technology exchange, learning from local technicians and also teaching them about renewable energy. So I'm really excited to learn from you guys and talk to you guys about how we can make a more sustainable practice about diffusing technology in the developing world, and also learning about their technology as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Irene. I'm a sophomore at Babson College, and I'm here because Rainey told me about her involvement with Impact Hub, and like Max, over the past 2 years that I've been at Babson, I've really solidified my interest in making social impact a core part to my career. I do want to start my own social venture at one point in the food space. When I'm from Bangkok, Thailand, and I lived there my whole life before coming to Boston. And I think that I really believe that businesses have a great power to really create great social value alongside economic value. And I think that doing good and doing well have to happen sequentially. I think that they can go together. And so I'm really trying to find ways to get involved outside of campus to see how I can realize my career.
Yeah, hi, my name is George. I was a data analyst at John Hancock, and I found the event online, and I was interested to learn more about the environment and how to protect it and to influence it with the technology. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thanks everyone.
Maybe kick off the conversation quickly with a chance to discuss what we think the definition might be of technology exchange and how we want to interpret that in our conversation. I think probably the broader the better, but there's when we were thinking about this together before the lunch, we talked about kind of the diffusion internationally of hardware, software, ideas, and practices in the for-profit and nonprofit sectors and through social enterprises. So, it can be big pieces of equipment like my organization with our drill rigs we take over to the Central African Republic. It could also include, tech startups, new software that they've created or an app. It could also include just ideas and practices about how to manage businesses and social enterprises that organizations and groups are sharing across borders. So I don't know if anyone had any input and ideas about that.
On definitions.
Yeah, on definitions or just examples that you think it might push that definition. Again, this is very much a working definition that we came up with together, if possible, looking at things online.
I mean, I think thinking about technology transfer too, Adrian mentioned there's different kind of modes or methods, and we can talk, a little bit later about the successfulness of ways that you do it, but I think to have the most success in your technology transfer, you actually have to combine lots of these modes together, right? Like if you give software to somebody but don't transfer knowledge, that might not work. Or, if you just send something over and leave it there, right? That's not really good technology transfer. So technology transfer to me is both sort of the act of transferring things, as well as, sort of transferring that idea of it and those things working together.
It could be interesting to jump information here from. But what do you think about the way that each of your organizations are doing that makes it successful technology transfer? And then what other gaps are around, like if it's not water related or something that can be with technology that's not there. Interesting.
I think understanding local context is extremely important. In our project now, doing irrigation actually in Malawi, Mozambique, and understanding that people there don't really want to use treadle pumps, even though it makes sense from an outsider's perspective, is very important. And if you don't do interviews and focus group discussions in the local area before you disseminate or try to disseminate the technology, it won't be successful at all. And understand that, what we may value is totally different than what someone in a local context may value. Like that relates to food, relates with, water technology. There might be a myth or not an urban legend, but a rural legend that certain technology has ghosts associated with it or spirits, that's something that we had no idea about coming from the outside. So really understanding local context is extremely important.
And have you seen a shift like across organizations that are beginning to understand that more? Or is it still a struggle to sort of shape these organizations that can help them don't understand that they're not doing necessarily the right things and they're not sort of having those focus groups and easing communities into things?
I think unfortunately there's a lot of time pressure, especially in international organizations, to just get the funding. You want to start the project right away without really doing enough planning before or taking the time to talk with local people. Oftentimes projects are made without even visiting the area first. So in the project proposal, we'll say what technology will be researched or disseminated without actually going there first. So that's something that I think should be changed even from the top down, like in international organizations and governmental programs. I think with small enterprises, it's a little bit better, and they try to link up more with local NGOs and local entrepreneurs to try to understand the local context.
But even if you're a small organization, when you get funding, it's who are your customers? Is it who's funding you or who's using the product, right? So I was reading an article about this soccer lamp. So it uses like kinetic energy. So
I was reading an article and it's impoverished kids love the soccer ball that powers the lamp, ... until it breaks. So that's the name of it. So this reporter went to the community that got sent all of these soccer balls, like had no connection to the organization. She went by herself and did a report and found that half of the balls broke after less than 2 months. A few broke in like 2 days. And some of them broke in less than a year. All of them pretty much broke in less than a year. And in the end, she said, well, she actually spoke with one of the stakeholders that was using them, and she said, well, if anybody had actually ever talked to me, they would have known that I don't want one of these balls. I just want to be connected to the grid. And if they would have spent all of the money, which would have been about $60, which would have included the soccer ball, transporting it, R&D, that would have connected her to the grid for probably like 5 years. That her and her family to the grid for 5 years. So she's saying, they would have told, but nobody asked her. So who are your customers? Who are you answering to? Is it Ashton Kutcher, Bill Gates, whoever's funding you, which is these people who they're getting their funding from? Or is it people using your product, which is, it's difficult because when you're getting millions of dollars, billions, and these people are saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. We kind of have to answer to them because they're making all this money, but kind of stuck. And then these people are 26-year-old MBA students from Harvard in a New York apartment, and it's to their credit, they're saying, well, we don't know what's going on in Mexico. We're just a bunch of 26-year-olds living in an apartment in New York. And which is, it's true, what can they do? But they need to be having some kind of impact analysis and all this stuff. They don't have like the long-term goal vision of doing all of that, those sorts of things. So that's kind of a case that kind of stuck out to me of like some things that they could be doing better, but I'm kind of stuck in, I kind of feel in pain, even if you know what I mean. Like what would I do if I were in this position, right?
Because they had developed a charismatic technology that seems like it could be appropriate in a lot of contexts. Maybe there is a context where it would be really useful to the people who got it.
All over the world play soccer or football, right? Whatever.
So they might have a perfectly good solution. I was going to talk about this later, but I think it sort of sums it up. It's really, I think what you have to do is you have to respond to a declared need, right? So they have a solution to a problem. It wasn't that person's problem, right? Like her problem was she wanted to get hooked up to the grid. So they swoop in, all for the right reasons probably. I'm sure everyone has seen it. You should have this, sort of impose this structure or this problem or sort of this solution or this product onto the situation, and it may solve it, it may not, I don't know, but I think really understanding and having impact and sort of making it a successful technical transfer, really responding to a declared need is really what we're going to do. While it might be a great idea or a great concept, if someone either hasn't asked for it, hasn't bought into the idea of it, then probably not going to be successful.
I think after, only 1 year of my entrepreneurial education, that's exactly where sort of the business mentality should step in, because when you're designing a product to sell, you do focus groups, you have so many surveys and all these things to decide whether or not your idea is a good idea for this target market. So a lot of times, people will have a good idea, they'll put so much work into developing it, getting a prototype, and then they'll sell it to the wrong person. They will think that it's something that it's not. And I can't think of a really good example right now. But it's the same sort of situation where the initial thought is in the right place. You're passionate about something, and you want to help or you want to sell a product, whatever it is. But whether you're blinded or you're sort of ignorant to this step, this crucial step in the process, I think that the entrepreneurial and business mentality would be of great help in a lot of these areas where, especially projects like that, where it is, whether it's like a physical thing or a sort of clear-cut service, where it's just essential. instance. If you want to sell a product, you need to find your right target market. If you want to create
If
a
they want to
change.
be selling it,
No, I know, exactly.
that's the thing, it's like they're not selling it, so what's the point in them like finding the right customer because they're not even selling it? So it's like, what's their motivation?
Well, why even develop the product or develop that ball, for instance, if you didn't, know that there was the need, like you were saying?
Because they developed the product and Bill Gates and actually
Exactly, which is fantastic, which is absolutely fantastic, and it is really cool. It's like,
validation that they need.
I think that's wrong.
But if you're falling in love with the solution rather than the problem, then why address the problem at all? I'm taking a class at Olin right now, which is at a partner engineering school. It's called User-Oriented Collaborative Design, and it's the most relevant thing I've ever done in my college career. Because the first phase out of the 3 phases that you do is you identify a user group, mine is community gardeners, and you spend 1/3 of your semester studying who these people are, what their experiences are like in the community garden, and what their needs and wants are, maybe both explicit and implicit ones. And before you even think about the solution, you really try to put yourself into their shoes, and you can really see why this method is successful in the way Airbnb recently rebranded itself. And I promise I'll come back to the tangent that I'm on. But when Airbnb rebranded themselves, the design consulting group that they outsourced spent a good couple of months traveling to 16 cities that I think you're all familiar with Airbnb, what Airbnb is. So they spent a few months traveling to 16 cities around the world where there are Airbnb listings, understand what the Airbnb culture is like. The design company interviewed hundreds and hundreds of Airbnb employees, everyone from the CEO to the janitor who cleans the bathroom, and they really tried to understand who the Airbnb is before they said, okay, so this is what your new logo is going to look like, and this is going to be your new color palette. But I think the difficulty here is your key stakeholders are not in the same geographical location as you are. How can you keep up this relationship of, I want to immerse myself in you, but I'm not physically where you are? And how do we address that? I guess is the question. What kinds of struggles, if you will, are you all experiencing within your organizations because your key stakeholders are not constant, right?
I think finding the right partners is really important, and having a long-term relationship with them. And like we've been working with our partners for 7 years. And from the beginning, taking the time to find the right partners and saying, okay, we're investing our time with you, you're investing our time with us, like let's be honest with each other. And because a lot of times what happens is there's not a lot of honesty and kind of things like, for example, if you do interviews, sometimes people won't be honest with you because
They're trying to be polite.
Yeah, they're trying to be polite. And so they won't be honest with you. So that happens a lot, especially in what I have in my personally seen. But they're trying to be polite and tell you what they want to hear. So trying to find, like, with focus groups and things like that, but even with who you're going to work with, finding the right partners and finding the right people is really, really important. And having that long-term vision, not kind of saying, we're going to deploy this product and give this to 20,000 people and then just leave. Yeah, like, no, we're going to work with people. We do education, so we don't have a product, so we educate people and we go back. We go twice a year, and I call them every single week. So it's kind of like constant communication. So I think that's the most important, is finding partners and people that you want to work with in country, that you can be honest with, you trust, they trust you, and it's like an ongoing relationship.
So do you have people from your organization who work based? Are there ever language or cultural barriers?
always. Like, you just have to laugh about it, because like, there was when I was there visiting, it was a very funny story, I won't tell it, I'll tell you later off camera. It was very funny, and we just laughed about it. It's just a language thing, and you just have to laugh. And it's just one of those things that we've been working for a long time. We just misunderstanding. But it does happen, and it's just, it would be the same thing if they were to visit the US, things would happen. Cultural things. But
Yeah, for us, I think like good communication techniques, which you can have if you're speaking the same language and you're both native in that language, or if you're, speaking a language that someone else is not native in and you're using your native language. But, sort of repeating what you've said or what you think they've said helps a lot because they've said something and they've translated it into English and it comes off, maybe a little bit different than what you think. Like you have maybe some doubt that what they said is really what they understand. So, taking efforts to have good communication, repeating what you say in a different way, doing it over email, doing it in person, not in person, but over the phone, over Skype, that helps a lot. Just being a good communicator.
Water for Good, our organization is actually heavily based in the Central African Republic, so we have staff on continents eventually. I think it's still important for us, all of the staff, to be receptive and understanding of the kind of challenges that each is facing. So I recently went to the Central African Republic and had a chance to talk about our funding sources and explain the different reporting requirements that those different funders would prefer us to follow, and not just have it seem arbitrary. I mean, it still seems arbitrary to a certain degree, but explain that it's not something I dreamt up, and that it actually serves a greater purpose. It's not even just the donors we're interacting with want it is that they actually have donors that they're reporting to. And actually, Water for Good functions as a local partner for larger international organizations a lot of the time. So Charity Water or UNICEF will actually contract with us to implement work in that country because we have the assets and staff there to do the work. And so, we actually hope that our local staff can be responsive and collaborative with the local communities. And then, hopefully our reputation there is important enough to our staff that we can try to kind of learn best practices and best practices in community relationship building that way. And hopefully take some of that information back to our donors to try to build the bridge there so that there is a little less of this kind of counterforce of, who am I actually serving here? Is it the donors or is it the communities? I think that international organizations can help build that bridge and kind of create better communication and aligned interests. So that's obviously a very difficult and significant challenge, but that I think is actually an important role for organizations that want to work in a developing context. And one actually thing that's interesting in terms of technology transfer that we're doing back to reporting is deploying iPads in a tool called iForm Builder, so we can make totally customizable forms that our staff in the field takes to each rural water point and allows them to report on the functionality of that water point, indicate what parts have been used at that specific site, and talk to the community members, take time to interview them, have that recorded on the iPad. And they don't have to be connected to cell service to get the GPS and the photos and the interview site for managing our supply chain and for giving information back to donors about the long-term impact of their project. Maybe they funded the drilling of a well, but 3 years later we can say we went back to that same site and see what's going on there. And if you want to fund more wells, we can speak to the long-term impact they have. So that's really been powerful for us. We just implemented that starting in 2011, and seeing kind of the way that's changed the conversation in the last 3 or 4 years has been really interesting. More large funders are becoming interested in funding maintenance of rural water supply infrastructure. So that's huge. It's actually been a consistent trend within the sector. I like to say we played a full part in that. And also going back to what we were talking about, what's it like to try to gauge the end user's demand for a particular solution? I agree that that's really important, but there's aspects of sustainability that kind of, I think, go beyond that. So in the rural sub-Saharan Africa, people really like the opportunity to have a hand pump in their village. But whether or not that hand pump continues to function depends on a ton of contextual factors that community can't really control, and that we have a limited ability to influence. And so whether or not there's a supply chain for replacement parts for this very common piece of hardware, but like there's not going to be a hardware store down the street most likely. So how do we stay attentive to the context that we're operating in and try to work with organizations outside of ours to try to ensure the opportunity for those communities to care for their own pump. We actually provide a professionalized maintenance service, but there's all kinds of other things that play into whether or not a hand pump is reliably functioning in that community. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of any technology transfer. It involves hardware, especially. Like, how do you think about the total life cycle of that technology and how it's going to be replaced eventually? In fact, I was wondering how that affects your work with lab technology as you.
It depends a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we didn't say, I think, too much about what we do, but our technology transfer, our main technology transfer is lab equipment for the biological and chemical sciences. And so we're actually physically transporting, equipment from here to a university in the middle of the country. And, first of all, the equipment that we send is a mix of used and new equipment. Used equipment that's obviously still working, and new equipment. So there's a concern of what is the life of that piece of equipment.
Yeah, obviously nothing lasts forever, right? So even when you send a brand new piece of equipment over, right, there's lots that goes into being able to use it. So this, I kind of alluded to a real world example of this problem and how I kind of feel like we actually do respond to a declared need, right? We don't just say we have equipment and we think a good, chemistry department should have these things. You're going to get them, and shove them out the door to these people, right? Actually, there's much more that goes into this, right? It's finding good partners to work with, right? So not only does everyone in the world say I want equipment, right? But what's in place? Like how does the university sort of support research, and how do they fund the departments, right? What size lab space do they have? All the things down to access to clean information. How frequently does the power go off? Do they have backup generators? Right? Do they have power transformers? They're, again, you're plugging a piece of 110 equipment into 220, amp outlets, and that's now gone, right? So it's not only sort of the technology transfer, but sort of that knowledge base, right? How to use it, how to set it up, how to maintain it, things like that. So for us, really, and Melissa drives this portion of the program, is really selection of the universities that we work with. It's probably one of the most important things. If you get that right, lots of other things fall into place. You get that wrong, and you're dead in the water from the beginning, right? So, when there's a whole lot of work that goes up front in order to do that, and then we send equipment over, right? But I've been to universities, and our founder and CEOs been to universities where I can probably even name the type of equipment and the maker of it, right? But about 25 years ago, the World Bank sent all these people atomic absorption spectrophotometers, right? A big piece of science equipment, right? It's about this big and it's blue and it was a certain make, and they sent out a ton of them. And it just showed up at the doorstep, right? No one asked for it. They didn't know how to use it. I'm telling you, I've never seen one in them. Yeah, so it's pretty complicated. Yeah, it's very specialized. I've never seen one in use. Right? And so what happens with us is we look at this whole selection process. We ask what projects are being worked on, what equipment is needed to support the teaching or the research into those projects, and what expertise do they have in order to set up, maintain, respond and share this equipment. And so that's hugely important. So that's why I keep, kind of saying declaring, responding to a declared need. Not only do they say we need equipment, they need these particular things. that's not this for us, again, not the same for everybody. It's not the same set of equipment at this university as it is to that university, right? The example of the soccer balls, for instance, right? Yeah, there's a need for light, but how you get that and what the right setting for that is not the same for every village or every person or whatever it is. In that example, the woman wanted access to the grid, and not something you kicked around. And right? No one's ever seen the, lightable soccer ball. And when it breaks, they kind of go, well, that's no good now. Next, then you're back where you were before. So it's not sustainable. Right? It's the problem. So,
But going back to the repair and maintenance of after we send it, part of it is, as David said, finding a good partner that already has some of that knowledge, right? Because we don't have the capacity, right, to send people over. Although it's something that we'd like to work on because, some of the newest technology that's happening here, if no one has been trained in it, it's still a beneficial technology, and you want to be able to have the training for people to use it, and for them to be able to repair it. So, one of the things that we're kind of working on now is how can we actually get that sort of repair knowledge transfer happening. And so we're trying to find partners with, organizations that are already, like science organizations that are in country who have networks of scientists, who have a ton of knowledge and who can, partner with us to train, the university partners that we're working with. But it's a tricky problem for us because we can't have 100% knowledge of every single piece of equipment, and whether or not if one component of that breaks, is there a supply line for that? It's really tricky for the subset of equipment. And part of it for us is saying, okay, well, if it's too old, we're not going to send it because we know there's no supply line for anything that can be repaired with that. And then there's other degrees of, well, it's a new piece of equipment. Do they have distribution channels in country where they can get pieces that are similar, or repair pieces? And that's something our partners work on as well. Are the manufacturers of the specific equipment that we're sending them, do they have a presence in their country? Because if they do, then they can get service warranties. They have technicians that come in, and they're not relying on, their own personal knowledge. Because a scientist can be great at doing experiments using a piece of equipment, but they're not mechanics. They can't necessarily fix it. It's not what a normal scientist would do. So we're kind of working on those avenues to make sure that the life of this piece of equipment lasts for as long as it possible.
And for some of the less highly technical pieces of equipment, people are very adaptable. Right? So we've seen instances where electric centrifuge has been, changed and adapted to becoming some hand, used and things like that. So they may do, but ideally going forward, right? So the issues with sort of training and repair on that specific piece of equipment is a very interim step, right? Again, even if they have access to the manufacturers and maintenance issues that can be repaired or parts that can be replaced, nothing's going to last forever, and it eventually becomes outdated or whatever. The ideal goal is that because they now have all of the equipment that they need, right, that they're doing more research and they're publishing more articles and they're getting more funding and they're training more students, and it becomes sort of a self-sustaining kind of thing eventually. So that eventually, with this sort of kickstart of equipment, right, they're able to purchase replacements for, So this is really the step that they need to, go on the right path. So our model is not meant to be, we're going to continuously and forever supply you with the equipment you need, right? Be reliant upon seeding labs to get the things that you need, right? Really, our model is to get you the equipment you need to become self-reliant, to become sort of a leader in teaching and research and training.
Is potential long-term funding stream, for that university, is something you guys actually look at when you're also searching for partners? So if they did better research and they were able to publish more, they would be competitive for grants. Check.
Yep, yeah. So we look at their existing funding stream, because if they have absolutely no funding, us giving them equipment is not going to give them more funding, because they're not going to have money to, have staff. They're not going to have money to have reagents. Doing experiments is very sample and chemical heavy. Even if you have the equipment, you still need to bag other things. So if they don't have sort of a supportive infrastructure in place that will allow, extra equipment to actually catapult them to further successes, then it's not really a good partnership for us because they're not quite, at a place where we can offer support.
Yeah, so actually, again, the application that Melissa runs is, it actually doesn't select for the neediest university. So what it selects for is good partners for seating labs that have a need for equipment, right? So I think if we were searching for the neediest university, we'd be working with a little bit different sector of.
We need other things
Right.
to support them, which we don't have right now.
Yeah, and so again, for an organization like ours, it's hard to be all things to all people, right? So, but to tie it back to sort of the sustainability of what it means for tech transfers, not only, again, we don't just swoop in and say, here's a bunch of equipment, have at it, right? Responding to what they've actually asked for. We know that training over there is an issue on repair and maintenance and setup and things like that. Right? And then sort of connections to the global scientific community. So we have other programs that sort of run other programs that tie into that. Right? Past we've had the fellows program where we bring scientists from those universities, we bring them over here. We place them in labs around town where they meet new colleagues. We take them out of there to do, things like sort of the soft skills like grant writing seminars, right? Student mentorship, which they don't really get taught, right? Business communication seminars, things like that. So sort of there's, again, the knowledge transfer as well as the hardware transfer. So hard skills and then the sort of soft skills as well. So to us, it's sort of all part of it. But yeah.
The thing, your organization also has material goods, right, in the big stoves.
Yeah.
How do you approach
Yeah.
the longevity
We
maintenance issue?
partnered with a local NGO in Malawi that produces clay cook stoves from the rural areas, and then also partnered with a rocket stove manufacturer in South Africa and imported
A
those.
rocket stove?
It's a more sustainable stove, which is like about $15 US. A clay stove is about $2 to $3 US. So we're testing the markets for these certain products and seeing, is there willingness to buy these products, and if so, what's the willingness to pay? Because a lot of universities are promoting like $80 stoves for smallholder farmers, which is an obscene amount of money for them.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to see, okay, is it possible to produce and sell locally made products either in the villages themselves or nearby villages, which have a lifespan of 2 to 3 years, or $15 stove. But yeah, it took meetings with local partners there and convincing them that we were good to partner with and that we're interested in sustaining their business actually, and in creating more business for them. Because there is an entrepreneurial mindset which is lacking in some villages where they produce the stoves. They could, go outside of their walking radius to sell the stoves, but they don't. So kind of helping them think, okay, could you hire a bicycle or a wagon and then sell the stove, within the 10-kilometer radius, and then having them kind of plan out, okay, what are the variable costs of producing the stove? What's your profit margin? And just teaching them very basic finance. So that's what we've been working on the project there.
So for those of you thinking about like the longevity of these projects and trying to work both on the front end with the research we're talking about as well as on the back end with the maintenance or what have you, is there sort of, whether it's your organization or another, some model that you see as like a shining star that like you've seen work really well, and sort of what are the aspects of that that you think made it work so well? So big or small. I mean, I just don't know enough about this world yet to be able to know an organization like that, but it'd be cool to hear your thoughts.
I folks are a part of an organization called Swale, which is in Haiti, and they're focused on composting toilets. And I don't know all the details of their business plan, but just to give an example that's not, from the group here, their focus is to actually have consumers buy into the idea of using a composting toilet, so they have a product they're selling in peri-urban areas in Haiti. And then the goal is to collect the toilets and make agriculturally viable compost that will then help address issues of soil degradation in Haiti. To actually create a marketed product that people really like and are buying, and it's not a price that is competitive. That is one whole business plan right there. To then figure out the science of how do you turn that into really good compost. That's a whole biological sciences question right there. And then to actually get a market for that compost that you made that's robust and that's actually producing really good food and restoring the soil. I mean, that's a really ambitious and long timeline to see all those things come to fruition. But you need to see real sustainable change and create positive social impact. I think that that's the attitude and that's the ambition that will make a difference. And so I think soil is really interesting in that they're kind of starting things in all three of those areas and seeing some successes and figuring out what works and what doesn't and being really rigorous in their approach. And again, having a really serious local connection and a local base in Haiti helps, I think. And their international donors' interest in composting toilets, will go up and down, but their model is consistent and trying to constantly be refined. And they're trying to build a business model that isn't entirely dependent on, international donor funds. But it also isn't like, turning that away. So I think that that's really interesting and cool. I'd like to learn more about where they are in the process of figuring out the science and the marketability of their product. But I think it's a really cool example of what you can do if you have a long timeline in your project.
Get it for the long haul as well.
Right.
Dedicated for all that time.
Yep, you have to be in it for like a long haul to make it sustainable. You need to have like a 20-year goal.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. If the goal of social enterprises is to be sustainable, then doesn't that kind of imply that they would have a long timeline in terms of their involvement in the community context? I don't know enough about all the different social enterprises out there and how they've operated, but it seems to me that that's an important component, like a willingness to see something through and to actually be able to say.
And I think unfortunately in the culture, there's sort of this excitement about like a give and go attitude where like, all right, let's start this, that's done, let's do another thing. And that's cool because a lot of projects get started, but possibly detrimental because there's these good ideas or maybe even great ideas that are started and not seen through till what really is the end. And I mean, I've seen that just at my school with kids who sort of come up with whether it's a social venture or a business idea, whatever it is, and just sort of feel like they want not always to get it on their resume, like they actually are proud of their work, but at the same time, just sort of have a short attention span with it where they want to make something and then they want to make something else. And not necessarily understanding that, when you make something, maybe you don't have like a responsibility, but to really have it be worthwhile, you need to stick with it.
Yeah, and even if you know that you don't have a long-term attention span, maybe don't test it out in marginalized communities.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a cool idea, sticking with it, and then moving on.
Right.
But don't target at people who don't necessarily have a lot of disposable income.
Right.
Seek funding for things that from institutions that should be funding something.
Is there like a term for that? Partners?
Oh, sorry.
Pilot projects are us.
We'll just get overexcited.
I think that there's a mentality that the problems in the developing world are like due to the people's their lack of initiative to try to solve them or something. So it must be easy to solve problems.
Yeah.
Or that they don't have the resources.
Right. It's just a matter of finding the right technology and giving it to the world. So I think that's like a conception. It's understandable, but it's people use their initiatives.
Yeah, along the lines of that, I think there is more of a push for ideas actually coming from the local communities seen a lot of big grants which require that, the project is a community project, that there's engagement from the local community that you want to work in throughout the entire process. So that's a nice change, I think, from, normal Superman or whatever coming in and just trying to swoop in and solve the problem.
So now for lunch.
I could talk about this all day.
Yeah. Do you know on the, I'm sorry, but, I don't know. But, I don't know actually if you know how are they trying to provide things that have been successful. They're trying to database of technology. Yeah, but is it meant to be accessed by local, everybody? Yeah, anybody else that's helpful. Smaller little NGOs have access to technology database, and then maybe funders as well. But it's so easy for them to like their transfers from their database to someone in context trying to solve a problem. Or that's the anecdote they've talked about with me or along those lines, but you have other applications. Yeah, I wish they could have been here because they kind of are each involved in something kind of specific, but they're trying to look at it at the micro level. Different technology.
And that is that's a huge problem, I think, just in general with the social enterprise / nonprofit sector, is that everybody wants to do a lot of things, but they don't really know what everyone else is doing. And it's kind of hard to, make those connections and figure it out. I think in businesses, there's often, there's business school, there's business cases, and you learn about all the different things, but for nonprofits, it's usually people who, I don't know, or maybe the field somehow doesn't have that sort of rigorous study of what everybody else is doing. And what everyone else is doing currently. It's a lot of small organizations, big organizations, there's a lot of people in it. It's hard to figure out, who else is doing things that you can work with or that you can learn from.
There's like smaller networks, like for me, like there's a renewable energy, practitioners network, and like give monthly calls. Like there's a database that everybody that's working on sustainable energy is on that database because like the UN is runs the calls, so everybody wants to be on the database, right? That's
Yeah.
So, and like everybody's on the calls, so that's like a good database for me, and I know that there's one for water.
Rural water supply network does a lot of like knowledge sharing and best practices and aggregation, but just focus on rural water supply.
Yeah.
I think
we need a
it
science
would be
training
really
network.
hard to be like, this is what's going on. All of like,
Yeah, all the rules are everywhere.
all of like, all charities, all that. But it's like, I think they're trying to like market things, but I think maybe like there should be a science. Science.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's also an interesting role that that could also play in terms of sharing like your social enterprise and the approaches that they're taking, which is kind of complementary to just the nonprofits plugging along with the same issue for a long time. I think there's probably more that can be learned from that approach. And I know a lot of nonprofits are trying to develop aspects of their work into social enterprises, and that's a really common trend that's starting to take off.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what the long-term effect is of that transition. Like I kind of think that our organization is trying to think of our maintenance program as a service model that can be developed into a sustainable business.
challenge with all that is that, right, we talked about it before, is it's a very long horizon. Right? So,
It's so hard.
if you create a product and you figure out your market, you sell it, how quickly you're profitable, right? Those sort of things happen, right? These changes, certainly changes in science or, building a model of trying to develop a business from a maintenance aspect of it. These things take a very long time, right? It's same deal with all of these things. And so it's a much harder case to prove sometimes. So in some ways, I think you have to be more stubborn and actually more determined to make it sustainable because you have to prove that over that much longer time. So.
So in order to do that, what kinds of measures, how do you define success for your own perspective? How do you keep track of that?
Well, for one, that's going to be very specific per organization. For us, we're looking at research and education outcomes. So we're looking at classes either continuing or being made, offering new types of curriculum. So having a hands-on component that wasn't there before, being able to have more capacity for students are enrolled, including undergraduate, masters, and PhD students. The masters and PhD in particular, they're going to be the skilled workforce that is either going to stay in academia or join industry. And the university sort of ecology shouldn't remain there. It's supposed to, build knowledge for the country. So we look at those kinds of things for education. And then for research, we look at, publications, additional funding, staff in the lab, whether they're enabled to do research in new directions or enhance the current research. Like they were doing this thing and, took them X amount of time, which, could be 5 years. And now it's taking them 2 years instead. They can do things faster. So those are sort of like impact outcomes that we look at. And then we also look at sort of program outcomes that are more specific to implementation. Like, are we doing a good job implementing what we're doing? So is the equipment being installed? Is it being shared? Is it continuing to be used? Those are kind of different measures.
I think we look at a lot of things as well, but I think what we're trying to track very carefully right now is the proportion of time that hand pumps in our network are functional. So if we go to a community and it's not working, ask them how many weeks it's been down and keep track of that across the whole network of 1,000 water pumps that we're trying to maintain and see how we're doing on that. And then also look at community repayment rates. So we're asking the communities to help cover the cost of this maintenance service. How is that tracking and what are the regional differences? So, are there things about the way Congress is carried out in a particular region that makes it a really good fit for this social enterprise model? And are there other regions where, communities are not willing to pay for this service and we need to rethink like the whole idea of having to run this business there? So those are things we're kind of asking questions about and trying to be attentive to right now. But we're primarily focused on that functionality rate for our metric of success.
When certain communities don't have high repayment rates, do you do further investigation and see why that's the case? Or do you use your resources in other ways? Because it's always a choice. Like, do we investigate that or do we just go to other villages and repayment rates are higher there?
We don't stop servicing communities because of their lack of repayment. Currently, maybe long term that might be a strategy to incentivize it. But there are things we kind of know about the populations there. For example, in one region specifically, a lot of the population are recently settling nomadic groups, and their understanding of repayment, saving money is just very different culturally. That's not something that they're familiar with. And a lot of times they're not even using money, but that's sort of a small proportion of the total network. But there, we kind of understand that it's going to take a long time, a lot of work with those communities to address some of their pretty serious needs before we start switching repayment and then buying the whole that we're trying to explain. So we're basically being patient there. There are other areas where communities live in a more arid region, they really value the hand pumps and they really value them, continuously working. So they're really excited to pay us back, but they were very much affected by the recent conflict. And a lot of them are displaced and are just slowly returning back. They don't have money. They basically, returnees from the conflict. So we're not focusing on repayment there, but they have expressed a lot of interest in the service. And we're hoping to kind of roll out a more substantial contract system where it's transparent about what the commitments are on both sides. And there are other areas where it works really well because there aren't those like technical factors that make it difficult. Yeah, those are some of the nuances of working in the Dominican Republic.
Well, I think I'm going to end the webcast. Thank you guys all for coming.
Thank you.
Wait, before